Lead by inspiring, lead by experience, lead by example, lead by. The Leadership Podcast brought to you by Ezeni. My name is Matt Stancombe and I'm your host, bringing you thought-provoking, inspirational chat every month. Hear from leaders, business owners, coaches and subject matter experts from across a variety of industries. So however you consume your podcasts, turn up the volume, relax, and above all, enjoy this month's guest. Welcome back to another Lead By with me, Matt. Today, I'm back in Milton Keynes at X&Y with a new guest, someone that you haven't heard from us before, but it's a familiar name and a very welcomed guest to our podcast. David Mullins is from Cross Country Chains, and we have some history, ignition, and ezeni with him and his relationship with Renault Group. So welcome, David. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much, mate. It's nice to see you all again. Yes, I'm currently head of brand communications and digital strategy for Cross Country Trains. My relationship with Ignition, the new sales, probably now goes back nearly 20 years. So I did 17 years at Renault, obviously within the automotive industry. Before that, had various other roles within the leisure industry, predominantly probably Hilton Hotels that people will have heard of. And during my time at Renault, I like to think that whilst I did sort of 17, 18 years there, it wasn't 17, 18 years of working for one company. There were probably 4 or 5 half decent roles I think I had there that ranged from customer relations, managing customer relations teams, dealing with some pretty interesting issues back at the time. If we talk about our products back then, you look at the product lineup now that Renault have, it's obviously fantastic. And then I was fortunate enough or excited to join the training world, which is where the Ignition brand came along for me. And that was just a phenomenal time because the lineup of products we had coming through then were thick and fast. So there was some real fun and engagement in training activities from a product point of view. But the bit that I absolutely loved was the behavioural side of it. And I looked after the sales manager training and the sales executive training. So it was really getting into the detail of what do customers need, what are their expectations, what the behaviours you need to demonstrate to make a customer feel that they want to buy from you. And if you think about the automotive industry, probably even now being out of it a couple of years, there is still this people, it's a big investment. So therefore, you know, they'll have choice more so than when I was working there. And with all the different powertrains and electrification, you've got to know your stuff. So that was fantastic. And I guess I wouldn't say my time had come at Renault, but I think you start to get to a certain age yourself. You start to have aspirations of what does the other side of the fence look like? And an opportunity came to go and join Cross Country Trains. And it wasn't something that I'd ever considered doing. I hadn't thought I must work for a railway company now, having worked for an automotive organisation, and this job landed. And I've got to say, it's enthralling. I mean, people have an expectation and their own experiences of rail, but it's such a complex industry. And I'm literally heading up what people would see as the creative side, the marketing, advertising. I have digital within me as well. So it's a real broad brush of marketing, but it's just a fascinating place to be, Matt.
And are you missing automotive?
If I said I miss the car, yeah, I probably do. Automotive, I miss maybe the processes from automotive. I miss the ability to work in maybe slightly a different way than we do in rail. Renault taught me a hell of a lot. I'll forever be grateful for Renault. And I think even now, I didn't go into cross country and be that person that when in my previous role I did. But I often still refer to we, and it's really bizarre, even sort of out of the industry now for 3 years, I'll refer to Renault as a real collective. And even last week, funnily enough, we were having a conversation about some activity we were doing in brand marketing. And I brought up some of the experiences that we'd had at Millbrook, for example, with Ignition when we launched a couple of automobiles there. Who uses that word?
Very professional.
Exactly. When we launched a couple of models back there. And it really took me back, and it was really good. So I look back. Do I miss automotive? Probably not now, because I've got a career path. But I've looked very fondly back on Renault and what it taught me and what I learned, and actually how I embed some of what I learned there now into the team at Cross Country.
And that's the bit that's really interesting, is because like anything in life, there's always transferable skills and crossover. And for you obviously had 16, 17 years with Renault Group and worked your way through different positions, as you've talked about. and had major responsibility to internal people as well as the public seeing what the brands are about. And you continue to do that now with a brand that's having huge change in a massively evolving industry. So talk to me about sort of the people part, because ultimately that's what ezeni is all about. We're about leadership, talent development, and looking at culture. And I know that's close to your heart because of the transformational roles you've held. And you talked about behavioural stuff. So let's start with some of the people parts in your current role. What size team do you have at your disposal, and do you have direct reports?
So the marketing team at Cross Country isn't the largest by any stretch of the imagination, but we've got 8 or 9 people that I would class as head office marketing team. We've then got three agencies that we work with. We have an agency that works with our digital platform, so our website, our CRM, and then we have our agency, which is our traditional creative advertising media, and they've got amongst themselves sort of 200 people embedded in there. But I'll then work with a core team of 9 or 10 people there. So my daily number of engagement, if you like, is around 30 people a day that I could have some form of interaction with, and at different levels as well, different experiences, different niches. So it within Cross Country, given the industry that it is, because people talk about I'm always one for phrases, and in rail I've learned very much it's facts not feeling, and you don't choose your train company, your train company chooses you. Because Matt, if you want to get on the train here at Milton Keynes, you've got 2 choices. If you want to get a train from Reading, you've got 2 or 3 choices. If you want to go on a specific destination, you can't, like choosing an airline from London to New York, have that variety. You will get either Cross Country on sort of our region of the network, or you'll get not a competitor, because we're not competitors. You will have a different operator there. So it's quite interesting how you market something that you're ultimately gonna have to travel with us, whether you like it or not. And therefore, in the people element, it's about bringing all those enthusiastic pieces to life. And in our brand, and particularly at Cross Country, it's our people that make our brand. People talk about people all the time, and what is a good brand, what are your stable fundamentals, foundations, whatever cliche you want to come up with. And our people are fantastic. And I think what I learned at Renault was that people will invest a lot of time in you if you show a willingness to succeed. And at Cross Country, it's very much the same. But being an outsider coming in sort of 3 years ago, I had this fear of who is this? Who's this automotive guy coming in telling us how it all should be? And actually, it was the welcome I received from Cross Country from people that was not this. We've been in rail for 25 years, or I've worked in rail for decades. People welcomed fresh ideas, but they were also very good to share with you maybe not failings of previous people, but what can and can't be done. And what I'm really learning in Cross Country, Matt, is where my energy needs to be with people, and what are the ideas that are going to grow and flourish and ultimately we can deploy, versus what would be a nice to have, and I'm going to waste a lot of time and energy and resource, and I dare say it, budget, to deliver a pipe dream that is never going to happen. So given the complexities of rail, and I'll choose my words carefully, that there's some certain hoops that we have to jump through. But even when I deal with some of the people that I have to, whether it be from a compliance, a governance, or in the creative world, there's just this real appetite to deliver on good stuff. And that is all about the people connections that we make.
Yeah, and that's fantastic, because ultimately that's what creates the loyalty. People want to stay with a company where they feel valued and appreciated. And as a leader, you're leaning on those expertise, because we talked about this in previous episodes. If modern leaders carry too much ego and they carry a view that they have all the answers, it's a self-limiting factor that means that the company doesn't progress. So by allowing people to help everybody grow and embedding those values into the business, it suddenly accelerates the company. And it sounds like, Cross Country are doing that with people through bringing in expertise, but then being creative, and you have a creative department on top of that. So that's really exciting. So with the people you have working in marketing and comms, What sort of dynamics do you have in terms of people? You know, if you were talking in a language of, you know, maybe red, greens, blues, and yellows, that kind of thing. What sort of type of people have you got?
I'm very lucky that I have a very diverse team, but I've also got a team of different levels of experience as well. And I said earlier that by you know, I've got 9 people within the marketing team. What I would say is that within that marketing team, there is lots of different levels of experiences within themselves. Some who have been in the industry for quite some time, some that are relatively new, and some that are probably passing through and deciding what their future career looks like. And so therefore, what I've had to learn, if we use the terminology senior leader, is the adaptability that I have to go through based on the personality that I'm working with, and also what is somebody's key experience. I mean, I remember, I always used to say when I was at Renault, I think in life you can put lots of things on a CV, you can evidence lots of things, but when people talk about behavior and personality, you don't get a doctorate or an MBA through a personality. But it's as I've got older, I've realized the power of a personality, the power of a human touch, the power of an emotive way of working can be as important as somebody that is your absolute excellent macro Excel manager, your digital development manager, your blue sky thinking creative individual. So every day I'll go into a different meeting with different personalities and individuals, and try and take those different styles in the way that I was doing years ago, where people would understand what my ceiling probably was, but also fully understood where I would add value in a certain environment. And I'm not using the phrase you'd roll out Mullins for this type of meeting, but I appreciate there is a time and a place, certainly within marketing, where certain personalities are required. And what's great now within cross country is where we have so many different things going on, whether we're talking about a brand activation launch, or we're talking about our new platform, Take Us on Your Journey, or we're looking at some of our digital escalation. Having the right person with the right black and white binary thinking is absolutely what we need for that task. And I don't need humor, and I don't need bubbly personality, and I don't need huge engagement. What I need from that individual is a real methodical approach to this is the task. And by investing in them in the right way, the results absolutely show, as we're seeing at cross country, that we can hit the nail where we need to do so, maximizing and being efficient with what we have. So the personality piece, Matt, is massive, and that's something that I've learned, and it's only probably in the last 10 to 15 years I've really appreciated it from different roles, where the role might not be for you. It's actually the way your leader, your manager, your directorate treats you in that role that will get the best out of you.
I think that's a great sentiment, and clearly you're doing a lot of work in that space, and I'm very passionate about the science and the behavioural science and neuroscience of people's personalities, not because of the science, it's the outputs of it and what it can deliver and what it allows people to achieve at a personal level. They feel engaged, they know that the manager has empathy and is understanding. So I guess my question to you is, how did you reach that point where you knew how to use that knowledge and expertise to give you that kickstart where you are now? Is that professional learning? Is it from experience? How did you get to that point where you knew what you were doing?
I think you know, I'm not one of these people that say everything happens for a reason. We all have our divine, we all have our divine path. But I think sometimes that things happen in a way that allow you to grow in certain roles, and within those roles you then learn. Within the previous role, when I tried this, it didn't work for me. What also helps is, and I think it is important, I'm not a hierarchical individual at all. So I think one of the things I learned very much at Renault, and I'm sure the Ignition team will remember, when we used to have these big events for car launches, it was all hands to the deck. It wasn't uncommon the night before day one that we were all still out doing stuff at 1 a.m, up early, getting your hands dirty because the show had to go on. I always remember a very dear colleague saying, "Davey, don't worry, whatever happens, that event event will happen at 9 o'clock in the morning, and that week you've got 1,000 delegates coming through. So it will happen. So don't worry about it not happening. What you need to worry about is, do they go away feeling that their day away from the business added value and they've learned something? So you start to pick up these little tidbits as you go along. But I guess as I've got older and I've moved through different roles, and Matt had very different styles of managers, you take that piece of everything from everybody and think, I like that because how did I feel when the individual spoke to me about that? Now, 20 odd years ago, I said, I'm not money motivated at all. That's probably changed a little bit now because we've all got to pay our mortgages and pay the electricity bill. But I still think the power of a thank you, a job well done when it's sincere and delivered in the right way, is the most powerful gift you can give anybody. So I often will always say to my team as well, no matter what happens, no matter where we are, no matter what we do, I absolutely promise you, you will never open your laptop with an evil email from me. You will not get that email that sets your day up badly. We'll have a talk about it. We'll learn from it. So I guess it landed. It just happened. But I guess subconsciously you pick up things from other people. I'm also a watcher, so I look at how other people conduct themselves and think, I really like that. That was good. And then you know, I'm a big sports fan, and you'll listen to various football managers or rugby coaches or even, you know, politicians, the way they can articulate. You'll pick things up from them that think, yeah, I liked that. That resonated with me. So a lot of what I do now is, how would I feel if I was in that situation, and how would I receive that? And Matt, believe me, I've made some mistakes. Don't get me wrong, because we're all human, but it's then how you react to that. And I think a lot of it then is the trust that your team have that you're actually supporting me in the way. And you said that you would help me on that. You did. And I feel so much better for doing it. And I'd say probably we're all very open to say it as managers and leaders, but you've got to stand by it. Learn from the mistake that you're bound to make, and sometimes don't try and head off the mistake that you know is going to happen, because unless it's going to be ridiculously copyright critical where you're going to go out with something that you shouldn't do, it's okay to let your team make a mistake, because that's the best way that they're gonna learn.
And in terms of learning from experience on a personal level as a leader, what do you think has been the most insightful learning experience for you? Where have you maybe had something go wrong or a challenge has occurred where you've taken immense amount of learning from it?
We've had Luke Broad previously on a podcast.
Yes.
So obviously Luke at Datcher will have spoken loads about his experiences. The one for me will be, and I think anybody that knows me will probably remember this, and I know Simon at Ignition will remember that moment as well. I'd always done behavioral people personnel roles. You can probably tell from my personality, and the business said to me very clearly, you've got a choice to make now, David. You can carry on going where you're going, and we'll love you, and you can do what you continue to do what you do, have these training events, working customer experience, define process and journey. But you probably need now some commercial experience. You need to really understand the decisions that you make that can be profitable or damaging to the brand. So I became a product manager, and it was probably to this day the toughest job I have ever had, Matt. And I did it for 2 and a bit years, and I was very fortunate enough to be the product manager for the SUV range. So it'd be wrong of me not to give Renault Kadjar a shout out, because everybody that will listen to it that knows me will know how passionate I was about Kadjar. I was also looking after Capture and then Koleos. And it was out of my comfort zone. So when you say to me, what did I learn? I learned that sometimes just being stoic, just getting on with it, just doing your best and knowing that you are not in the right role can sometimes help you. Because what it challenged me on hugely, when I say it's okay to know you're not in the right role, it's okay to know that on day one, you're never going to know the job fully. And again, another colleague said to me, if you go into a new job on day one and it's a perfectly easy job to do, it was never the right job for you, because where's the learning experience? And I found it incredibly tough, because I got involved in pricing. There was profitability, there was margin. I was having to try to understand a bit of French with the fish gams and the various pricing files. But working with a good bunch of people, what I realized was that my effort was being recognized as, he's not being lazy. He's just struggling in this particular role. And then again, that's when the leadership point came in for me from other areas where people were supporting me to it. But what it told me was that all of a sudden I started to think differently, Matt. So when I started to work with other training companies again, like Ignition, on events that I was a product manager, before I was seeing it from a different side. So I was getting a different message across to the Ignition team when we were talking about what the key USP would be, or actually why is it so important that you focus on this element of the vehicle or the range. And what that helped me do then was you look at it from a very much a strategic point of view. You look at it from a commercial point of view. And it just gets your mind thinking very, very differently. And I'd say if you talk about rewinding, being the product manager for those 2.5 years was incredibly tough. Did I enjoy it? No, I didn't. Would I go back to that job again? Absolutely not. But would I want another 2 years of that level of experience to learn again? Absolutely. Because it was so powerful for me to be able to, when I walked away from that role, there was almost like I felt there should have been relief, but there wasn't. There was almost a, have I gone too early? Should I have stayed a bit more? Then you move into the next role, and all of a sudden a crisis or a problem occurs, and everybody else is flapping. All of a sudden, yeah, come on, let's calm this down a bit. Let's unravel it. Let's unpick what we're trying to achieve here. And it's amazing what I learned from those 2 years. So I would say the best learning I had was from probably the time where I was my most unhappiest.
So in maybe a position of discomfort in the role, maybe confidence, not necessarily doing what you wanted to be doing, but it's giving you that insight in a very fast pace of time, isn't it? 2 years you've had to do some things and been challenged with some things that perhaps you didn't want to do. So that makes complete sense. On a people front though, so the people that you had contact with and again now leading, what challenges do you face there? What do you see in terms of trends with people where you think, oh, I don't know how to handle that, or you have to think about it. You have to take a step back and think about how to deal with that particular individual.
I think still people are very uneasy with conflict management, and I think one of the things that I've learned very, very quickly is you've just got to deal with it head on, because whatever the situation, whatever the person, whatever the role, and however that impacts on you as a person, you're probably all feeling exactly the same. You can drag it out and allow it to become an ongoing problem that then is going to affect effectiveness. It's going to stop speedy resolution to collaboration of work. Or you just deal with it and try and understand what the problem is. And I think today, what I would say that is very powerful is not being afraid to deal with it straight away, not being afraid to address the elephant in the room, sit down, have that awkward conversation, and just move it forward. And again, I think, when you move from one role to another, as I've said, within one organization, it can be very difficult, but you've almost got that familiarity, that comfort blanket of, well, that individual still sits at that desk that I can go and talk to. I've still got the friend on that floor. I've still got that director that I get on really well with. When you then jump from one organization to another, and an organization that is very, very different to what you're used to, you kind of sometimes go in with that imposter syndrome. And I suffered from it. I'm not going to lie. When I left when I left Renault to join cross country, there was then you think, what have I done? What do I know about rail? But then, because it goes back to the people, it comes back to the way that you'll do your 30, 60, 90 day getting to know people by asking the right question and asking it in the right tone, and not making a nuisance of yourself, but showing that you're asking the question to try to understand and support. It's absolutely amazing the doors that open for you. So,
Yes.
so for me, it really is about being a senior leader, is really getting to know your team and their personalities, but now not being afraid that if you don't know them, because they are just a closed book, but they're very effective, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to know who their football team is. If you ask them if they had a nice weekend and they just give you a one-word shutdown, that's absolutely fine. Because what I've learned is they will be watching you as well and analysing you. And if they feel they can trust you and then know that when you ask them to do something, they do it for the right reason, or equally, they ask you for support and you support them, you deal with it. So we don't all need to be blabbermouths like me. You can have some very quiet people, but just check in on them, make sure they're all right, and just look out for the signs of how they're performing.
Again, really great point. Makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the challenges in today's world that we didn't face, 4 or 5 years ago, was the intensified remote working and the need to try and connect with people. And I guess when you're dealing with those challenges of conflict management and you're trying to get a broad sense of the people in your team, when you then do that on a Teams or a Zoom, or you do that on a call, that becomes quite difficult. What do you do in those sort of circumstances where you were saying that you don't need to know lots of detail about people? What do you do then if you come out the other side of a weekend and you're trying to rev up the team? What sort of things do you have to go through, and what are your considerations?
So we've, I think, like a lot of people, I'm not going to try and say that I can claim credit for it because it was there before I joined. So we have a number of things within our own marketing team. We've got our Teams channels. There's our group marketing channel, which is generally for awareness for everybody. But within that comes a hi, how was everybody's weekend? I always like to close the Friday down always with a thank you for your efforts, because generally we've been through something that week, or we've been through something that's really positive that we need to shout about. And my biggest frustration, which I'm really open with the team about, is don't be afraid to celebrate success, because they come frequently, but you've put a lot of effort into that, and you should celebrate the successes, because it's very easy for people sometimes to focus on the negatives. Monday morning, we'll always have a remote huddle. So wherever you are, you dial into it. And what we try and do is, what are your priorities for the week? What are the barriers for the week? Because let's be honest, am I causing you a blocker this week because I haven't read a report you've asked me to do? Is a colleague on the call causing you a delay, and maybe you're just too shy to ask them to speed it up? So that creates a piece of debate. What I'll often try to do, though, is I feel sometimes that there'll always be a time when you have to have a virtual discussion that is not a pleasant discussion. But I feel that once you get to know your team, as we're talking now or whether we're talking on the screen, there's still a personalness to it. But I'll always make sure that if we're having those conversations, that has to be at home, because obviously working in rail, we get disruption with weather and all sorts of other issues. It's making sure that let's have that personal conversation when you're at home and I'm at home. So you're not in the office feeding in an alien environment. Or it will be a conversation, and I'll tell you what, we're both in the office tomorrow. Let's go out for a coffee at night, 9:30, 10 o'clock, and let's talk it out. Because what I find is that it was a difficult situation. I guess me coming in from the outside, who's this bloke that's come in from Renault? He knows nothing about rail. The team had been working throughout COVID. There were individuals that were interims that had stepped up to do the role, and then this guy's come in and he's got the job. So I naturally expected the blockers to go up. So a lot of it was about trust building at the start, Matt, getting to know them as people, them getting to know me, so that when we have these conversations, it isn't me as head of brand marketing, whatever my title is, and you within your managerial role. It's just two colleagues having a conversation to try and make your day better, and ultimately make all of our lives easier. And I think as a team, through the various experiences that I've had, and they will have been through as well, that I'd like to think that, and the results of our recent survey showed that for the team, that we are a collaborative team. We do communicate, and I think we have that trust level to have those difficult conversations. Now, is it as easy to have conversations with people in other teams that you're not responsible for? No, of course it's not. And that requires a bit more work. But I think providing you apply the same principles, you're courteous, you're respectful, and importantly, you're factual, then anything can be resolved.
And you were just talking about, you've done almost an employee colleague survey. What sort of things have come out of that have made you think, I need to make some adjustments? So is there anything in there that you think, right, there's a trend here or a topic that I need to work on myself as a personal leader?
Yeah, absolutely. So like most organisations, we have a yearly employee survey. It's been great this year. Our engagement levels are up, satisfaction's up. Cross country being a great place to work is up, and that's good for all of us, because I'm part of that. I want to come into work and enjoy it. I'm very fortunate. I live in the south. Our office is in Birmingham. I have the ability to travel to Scotland, Wales, down to Plymouth, wherever I need to be, I can go, and there are no questions asked. The one thing I would say is, and it's probably coming across in the conversation with you, is I can talk, and I enjoy talking, and I'll listen, and I'll articulate, and we can talk about a whole range of subjects. The one thing that's come out that I think is slightly disappointing that I need to address is the potentially how we communicate maybe as a team to understand. So we'll put a brief into our agency. They're absolutely on board with it. I'll assume that my one channel within the team understands it, and then another channel. Then we'll all get on this call, and there's a little bit of disconnect. Oh, I didn't think that's what we were doing, or I understood that. So I guess communication is always so important, but because we communicate all the time, it's making sure that we really define the right level of communication strategy for everybody in the team to understand what the requirement on that particular task is. Now it's not a major thing, because at the end of it, as I've said before, we have an amazing campaign that goes out. We've just launched a new TV advert. So many good things we've done, but I think what I need to do in 2025 is to step back and understand, are we clear in how we're talking? And if we're not, what's not working for you? What is working for you? And how can it be? And how can we make it for all of us that there is a clear understanding before we almost hit that go button and move things forward?
Yeah, and the sentiment I'm getting is you're very passionate about your people, and you're passionate about learning how to engage them as individuals. For the aspiring leader, maybe moving from a more junior management role into being a strategic leader, what sort of advice could you give based on your experience in terms of making that transition from a very operational, task-focused manager to the strategic thought leader that you are in the role you are now?
I'd say that's probably a really easy question to answer, because what I've learned and what other people have shared with me is exactly the same. First of all, don't be afraid. If you are becoming a leader, somebody else has seen you as a leader. Therefore, you have trust somewhere. We all know conversations go on, in the magic room. Whose face fits? Is your name on the right list? But seriously, it is about, first of all, don't be afraid, because somebody somewhere has the trust in you to do that. Number two is, and again, this will go back to my time when I was the product manager. I got loads of I worked with some fantastic people at Renault, and many of them are still there. Some have now moved on and retired, but they're almost like, I look at it when people talk about mentors. I've got so many people that I can tell stories about and relate to my job and career today. So number one is, don't be scared. Number two is that you don't actually have to be the expert in the job that you're working in, because we can't all be in marketing or finance is probably a little bit different, but you can't all be the absolute expert in every role and expect to know everybody's job, because it's just not physically possible. So first of all, understand that you just need to have an idea and an understanding. There's a common sense approach. Does it feel right? That's the big thing for me is you've got a proposal or you've got an action. What's the common sense approach to move it forward? And then what you're looking at, does it feel and does it sound right? Because that's the big thing. Is there an alarm bell ringing, Matt? So most of it is about just being grown up as you grow up in outside, how you deal with your friends, how you deal with your family. So if I was coaching or mentoring somebody, please don't be scared. Somebody's got your back somewhere. People, you'll be surprised the number of people that will give you the stern face, will maybe tut in a meeting, but a few weeks later, a few months later, will go, you're the biggest breath of fresh air we've ever had. You'll find something in common with them, and there'll always be something, Matt. I can tell you, there'll always be an incident that happens. There'll be a problem that you'll have to resolve, and you don't like to think of it. They'll have been awake at night. They'll have been panicking. They might have been hiding it for you. They've been keeping it on the conveyor belt and you've never seen it. And then it just explodes. And it's how you then deal with that. And you'll always have one moment where you connect with your team and to bring it forward. But for me, the big thing is just don't be scared. Honestly, just go with it. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair enough. And Luke, who you know very well, said in his episode about the fact that if you're going to be in the room, be in the room, and talked about make sure your contribution is clear. And he spoke with real confidence about remain curious. And that's been a common theme across all of the leaders we've spoken to. And I guess similarly, what you've just said, staying curious, being present in the room, not being afraid of being there and giving your value is a real attribute in modern day leadership. And I think it's the humility to say, I don't know all the answers. I don't have to know all the answers, because actually what you're doing is empowering the team to bring their best part as well. Now, thinking about the team that you've got and the future of train travel, and we've said it's not quite like cars where you've got products that are in competition. What are the biggest challenges now in your industry, and what types of people have you got to bring in for the future of the logistics of train travel?
So I think at the moment the obvious one is that we have a new government. So they have set their mandate out as to what they think the future of rail looks like. We've obviously got lots of different operators that are regional, intercity, long distance. So I think there needs to be with rail a settling down period. There's been obviously a lot of rail talk in the news over the last few years, whether it was industrial action. It's great that that's now been resolved. So I think where I always look at rail is, and I still see this, and I talk about cross country as this is our brand. It's almost like a start for us. We're about to go on a major fleet refurbishment. So cross country, I always feel does the best with what it's got. I spoke openly and honestly about our people. So over the next sort of year to 18 months, we go through a multi-million-pound fleet refurbishment. And in the customer's eyes, that's long overdue. It's long overdue for us. It's certainly long overdue for our onboard crews. So that's exciting. We've launched a new brand platform, Take Us On Your Journey. It's vibrant. It's colourful. It's about our people. It doesn't set us up for fail because it's about your journey and our people, how we connect. Let's say 200 people on board. That's 200 different stories potentially on that journey to 70 odd different destinations within the route.
I've seen your adverts and they're brilliant.
Thank you.
Really great piece of work.
We wanted. Obviously, I'm going to take all the credit for it, but it was our advertising agency, McCann Birmingham, who, when we sat down 2 years ago and defined the future. So similar to the question you just asked me, what do we think the next 2 years looks like? Well, when you're looking at a product rollout plan, well, we're not really doing anything. We were waiting for our new NRC contract to land. So there were lots of good things we were doing, but we were just waiting for that lift off moment. So we started talking about what is good today. What's the thing we celebrate the most? It's our people. The fact is, we travel north, south, east, and west. We don't really go to Anglia and Suffolk or London or Kent, but other than that, you'll see a cross country train somewhere. So we do the breadth. We're just about to launch a new service, the Three Nations Connect. Connecting England, Scotland, and Wales together. Fascinating stories that we can play on, and that gives us the permission to be slightly different in our marketing approach. So we've got our brand platform today that I think will share the test of time. We can adapt it, we can flex it up, we can flex it down based on where we are in a particular year. It can be seasonal, it can be fun. If you saw our first advert, that's quite sad. It's very emotive. The guy having a day off, a break from the norm, bunking off from school. It's brilliant. I love it. So what does the future look like? I think the future for us looks like, how do we become more digital savvy? AI gets thrown around a lot, but to be honest, Matt, does anybody really know what AI means and what it means? AI has been around for a long time. We've had chatbots around for over a decade. So it's making sure that we have the right service in the palm of your hand. You pick your phone up, you're traveling with cross country. You can order your food online. You know that your seat is available. You can the carriage formations, all the basic things I think that people expect have to be mandatory now because we're used to it now traveling with the airlines. So digital escalation. And then I think the future of rail long term, I really don't know, because obviously what does nationalisation bring? Is nationalisation everybody in together, all one livery? There are still lots of different dialects and regions, etc. But I think it's an exciting time because really rail should be the choice of people to travel domestically. You should absolutely have confidence to walk to your train station with intermodal solutions or car share, whatever, get on a train and have a pleasurable journey, relax, unwind, social. Does the future of train travel look like you have business zones again, where with people not working from home, but where people may want to work on a journey, but the family are with them. So they're going to work from Birmingham down to Penzance, then have the family holiday, catch up on their emails on the way back. Is there going to be, is there a desire and an appetite for different types of, Deliveroo style catering services when you drop, catering comes on? I don't know what the future looks like, but it should be a very, very exciting future in the same way that when EasyJet started and Ryanair started, they've evolved as brands themselves. There are different, now here's me saying that's what I think the future looks like. There are some absolutely brilliant operators out there who have got some modern fleets, different technologies. So I think it's probably about rail becoming consistent so that if you get off one operator and get onto another, yes, the livery might be different, the accents might be different, the fundamentals are exactly the same, but rail is a very, very exciting industry.
Yeah, and hugely evolved. As someone that doesn't know an awful lot about it, if I'm honest, I can see from your campaigns and the creative side that you and your team deliver, you're really transforming how travel is perceived on a train, and it's very, very clever. And I guess what you've done very, very well is bring all these great minds together, including your agencies and suppliers, to formulate this vision of the future and create it based around the people. Because it really, the sense I get is at no point is anyone really saying it's about the train or the line it's on. It's about the people that connect to make that ecosystem work, which is really clever.
That is it in a nutshell. So it proves the brand platform is doing its job, Matt. And I think the bit I would say as well, which is important when we talk about people and leadership, is when we launched the brand a year and a bit ago, there was some doubts about it. Did we get full buy-in? Probably not. As we've evolved a year later, when you've got other senior leaders coming to you who are saying, could I have the latest PowerPoint? We're looking to do this new uniform for our onboard colleagues. We want to make sure that the brand is a red thread throughout. When we're working with our fleet colleagues, fundamentally, they're saying to us, we'll look after the engines, the bogies, and all the other technical stuff. You can do, as long as you don't put leopard print on the side of it, we don't really care. But then as they got involved in it, you start to see that there is a pride about it. And again, it comes back to our people, and it comes back to managers who are respecting the value of the brand. And I think that's the most important thing for me, because people talk about, if you have a Big Mac in New York, Singapore, Johannesburg or London, it is a Big Mac. There's no question that it's not a Big Mac. And I think what I love about where we're going with the brand is it's taking its time, but bit by bit by bit, it is now within our senior leadership group. We talk about, our executive team talk about it. We put it as front and center of our conferences and various senior leadership meetings. And therefore, it's then about, having done the job right, so that my peers and my colleagues have respected the way that we've done it.
Yeah, and collective efforts here all round. And you've spoken eloquently about the fact that it is a team effort and the dynamic needs to be right. For me, the next logical question is to ask you about your boss, your leader. So talk to me about your manager. You hold a very senior position yourself, so talk to me about the position that you report into, and how maybe they inspire you to be a better leader, to be stronger and perform each day.
Sure. So I'm on a transitional period. So I've just recently had a new director to come through. My previous director I worked with at Renault. So I knew her, and that was interesting because actually, when you talk about a connection and an emotional connection and a trust in your boss, we were probably not at odds with each other when we worked at Renault together. She was in traditional brand marketing and I was in product marketing, so there was always a clash between those two areas of the business. She then moved into another role within Renault, and she tapped me on the shoulder and said, "How do you fancy coming downstairs and working with me?" I was like, "Nah, you're all right. I'm not interested in that." I remember she said to me, "If you don't do it in 6 months, you'll regret it." And you know what? 6 months later, I said to her, "You're absolutely right." I would have been kicking myself because she knew what I would bring to it. So again, it goes back to what we said about getting to know your team to understand what their positives are, and taking it back to the very beginning when I spoke about sometimes personality doesn't get recognized in industry as a qualification, when I think it's one of the most important things that we have in people. So we went downstairs. Then, of course, the great COVID happened. And for three months, whatever it was, we were the only two within our department that were basically doing the job of however many that were in our team at the time. And that then brings a trust together, because there really did have to be a trust during that time. I'm going to let you get on with it. We've got to, like everybody, we've got to prepare to reopen up, get our network going. So making it clear, I interviewed for the job at Cross Country and went through that process, and that was interesting because going into that role with her still there, it wasn't like, oh, this is new. There was somebody I knew in that corner office, and so it kind of made it a bit easier. But I guess, like with everything, working with her was great. She's now moved on to a new role, which means that now I've got to get to know my new boss. And it's just interesting again how you can, if you see it as an opportunity, how you can thrive off and learn off of somebody. So again, my new director has come in and he's done everything that I've spoken to you about. He's listened to me. He hasn't tried to make decisions. He hasn't tried to, this is my toy set now, or train set, shall we say, and I'm going to do it my way. But bit by bit, we'll offer an opportunity or think, have we considered this in a different way? So I'm always very, very respectful of the people above me. Equally, though, you show exactly the same respect to those below. So I think it's trying to be, and again, you can't always be a chameleon to everybody. And I fully suspect there'll be some people that might listen to this and say, "What a load of tosh he's talking. I worked with him for 16 years. Where's this David come from?" But actually, I think, again, being a senior leader is trying to be a chameleon and accepting that you're not always in your area just because you may feel you're more hierarchical than somebody else, get the answer that you want or the process you want or the sign-off you want. It's about that working together and, dare I say, digging in the trenches when needed and showing that you can take an interest. As Luke rightly said, be present in the room. I join many meetings, Matt, that I've got no idea sometimes why I've been invited to that meeting at first, but I'll go along. It then becomes fundamentally clear as to why I'm in that meeting, because at the end of it, there is a customer. At the end of it, there is a brand risk. At the end of it, there's a potential problem. So let's have the brand in the room at the start. So what are our risks to the brand? So again, that I'd like to think that's the educational piece that me and the team have been delivering over the last 2 years. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Getting to know a boss and working with a boss is great. You can mold your own team and have 9 people in theory do what you ask them to do because you're the boss. But if you're not getting on with your boss above, and again, over the years, I've had great bosses. I've had bosses. I wouldn't say I've had bad bosses. I've had bosses that I haven't maybe struggled to connect with, and that's a real challenge because you've then got to almost have the left side and the right side of the brain working very, very differently in how you work. But yeah, I'm quite lucky at the moment. I'm very lucky. Again, I'm going to be very open. Cross Country's got a wonderful leadership team and a great bunch of people there, and I don't know. People will say it's just the railway. I don't know. I work with other people in other operators. They all seem decent people. But I used to work with other people in auto and occasionally market engagement with them, and they were all good people. So I think it all goes back to how you want to come across yourself and be prepared sometimes to say, maybe I don't agree with that, but you know what? Your name is on the ticket. You are the boss. I'm going to respect you for that, and let's see how it goes. Because then I learn from it. Say you were right. I was wrong, and next time I know that might be the better approach to take. So as I say, it's always a learning curve.
Yeah, and the relationship is formed on trust between both of you. So the more that you're open and have a realistic professional conversation, the more you learn about how to interact with one another. So the behavioural parts that you spoke about earlier, you start to realise what language and tonality to use and where best to position those conversations. I just wanted to draw back to a point you mentioned earlier about you're very careful with the communication when you're talking to your team members to not say anything negative that's maybe deemed as almost like an evil message that gets sent on a Friday. But how do you deal with sometimes the stuff that comes from the top, so your boss, and you have to communicate it in a way that is positive without saying, tomorrow we need to have a conversation? Because no matter how sometimes we position these things, it will create worry. So what's your learnings in that space, and how do you manage that? It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one. And I think, again, it comes back to the experience of having good managers in the past who, first of all, you get so again, a really important thing sometimes is making sure that you don't overshare stuff because they just don't need to know it. It is about understanding what has been cascaded from above today that wasn't cascaded yesterday, that wasn't cascaded the week before. Is it really serious, or is it, let's be honest, Matt, somebody has just reacted to a situation that at this moment in time is the worst thing that could possibly happen for our company? is there a danger in 3 hours' time that there's going to be something else that is going to be yesterday's chip paper type scenario?
Yeah.
So first of all, it is really understanding what is the issue first of all. Sometimes, Matt, be honest with you, I don't cascade it to the team. I will just deal with it because I feel like I've got the confidence and also the facts and the situation to provide an executive summary as to why we did what we did or why I feel that the individual is wrong. That works occasionally because you don't need to involve everybody. However, there'll just be other times where what I'll try and do is actually not even say that it's a problem. What is the required outcome? And that almost becomes our new daily project. So, guys, the ask of the managing director, the ask of the owning group is the following. We need to, by this moment, do it. Sorry, it's short notice. A situation has occurred. We just need to deal with it. Then what sometimes will happen is that somebody somewhere might put 2 and 2 together and actually get 4 and go, oh, this wouldn't be to do with what I sent out via email or something. It possibly could, but you know what? It's done. Don't worry about it. Let's now unravel it and let's sort out what we do. Or it's something where somebody has assumed that a message is out because let's be honest, as a marketing channel, anything that goes out on one of our channels, marketing owns. We may not have owned the original content, but let's be honest, Matt, we put it live. So I can argue all I like that it was nothing to do with us and our team. So we have to take ownership for it. But a lot of the time, it's simply saying to the team, problems occur, people have their own opinion. And again, we have some very senior, very intelligent and very knowledgeable individuals that are making decisions. And, it goes back to that process of night when you're, when you're lying in bed. Again, fantastic story I had from a colleague who spoke to me about the emotional contracts you have. You've got 2 contracts with your company. You have an emotional contract and the legal contract. The legal contract at night isn't worrying about your marketing campaign at 3 a.m, but I am. So it's trying to position things to say these people are relatively senior. They've got more on their plate than what we have. So if that is the ask of the managing director or my boss or somebody else, let's even say maybe the Department for Transport, let's do the best job in answering it that we can, and then let's see what comes out there. And by doing that, actually, Matt, what I find is, other than maybe 1 or 2 issues in the last 2 and a bit years, that just hasn't happened because I think it's about always being on the front foot rather than being on the back foot. But the answer to the question that you posed was, I try not to filter it down because they just don't need to. It's happened. What's the point in putting somebody else at risk? Because the last thing I then want is people who have been doing a sterling job for however many months starting to question themselves off the back of one misunderstanding, one mistake. Same with our agency. We'll do things, it doesn't work. And my view to them always is, we do it once, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least we gave it a go, and we gave it a go at a lower level. That means that if we are going to put more investment behind it in the future and it failed, that's a catastrophe. So again, it's just about trying to not cloud other people's days with stuff that they just generally don't need to worry about.
Yes, and very sensible, because obviously you've got a creative team, and if you start to damage those relationships, I guess that can have a profound impact on what they do for the outward message if they're not motivated and inspired.
You know what, I won't call them out, but they'll know it if they listen to it. Some of the ideas they present are absolutely amazing, but some of them, honestly, Matt, they're never going to happen. But for every 1 or 2 of those we get a brilliant take us on your journey, break from the norm. It's fantastic. So you've got to go, and again, you've got to allow people the opportunity. So people look at different styles. So some people will be very matter of fact, black and white, that's the answer. Other people may need 5 or 6 minutes of intro to get to the bit they want to tell you. And I learned that very, very, very quickly. Let them have their 5 or 6 minutes, because if you try and cut that first 5 or 6 minutes out from them, you actually won't get the answer that you want or need. And they'll give you an answer that they think you want to hear. So you've got to give people the freedom of not speech so much, but you've got to let them work to the behavior that they want to, whilst though working with them to sometimes maybe be a little more succinct in their delivery and approach. So
a couple of final questions for you, because I'm very conscious of the time. You've given a really clear insight about your beliefs and values around leading people and encouraging people through the team. How do you stay relevant? Because obviously as they progress, they become more of a self-starter, and they can take on projects and responsibilities with less input from you and direction. So what do you do to make sure that you can fill the gaps where you're perhaps less present. So with your own personal development, what do you do in terms of feedback? What are those areas for you for the future?
Well, I guess for me, there is nothing more powerful than seeing a colleague, and certainly a direct report of yours, evolving and progressing.
Mm.
It can be, we could say it's very egotistical, but to see a team member develop and know that you've played a major part in their development. And believe it or not, Matt, one of the night, and it happened in the one-to-one today. A member of my team who is a great character, who really has a way of working in a different style to myself, actually at the end of it go, thank you. And I'd like to thank you for this week. I spoke to you about, I spoke to my wife about you. I appreciate what you did for me this week. That, as far as I'm concerned, that is job done for the week for
Mm.
me. How do I keep myself? I think I'm very fortunate in that I'm a nosy bugger. So so I won't. I need to, so to go back to the question just before. For me to ensure that I don't have to share all the information with the team means that it's good that I know exactly what's going on.
Mm.
That's not micromanaging. That is understanding what my team are working on and what we're aspiring to achieve. So that if I'm directly asked, again, I've got this belief that if somebody asks you something, you say, I'll come back to you in 20 minutes with it, it's fine. If you leave it a day or a bit longer, people don't think you actually know what you're doing. And therefore you get a second question that wouldn't have happened had you answered the first question
That's an
quickly.
interesting take, yeah.
So for me, and again, Renault has been brilliant in these development routes, I can tell you. So absolutely. And yes, so I'll keep abreast of the team. But obviously, if you develop your team and you start pushing them up, what I've started to find happening in the latter stages of my career as it is today, is that other areas of the business or other leaders start saying, that team's quite capable, they can now take this on. And what ends up happening is you don't grow your empire, you just grow the workload. And therefore, now that that's great, the team are dealing with this, I'm now picking up this that I wouldn't normally have been able to do. And it can be strategy, it can be involving yourself in, all sorts of operational and fleet decision stuff, because you've got an opinion, you start to be valued. So you almost develop on the job. And then you get put in positions that you may not be familiar with again. And it could be that you're asked to join a steering group. You're asked to become the third person in the room to vote on something. That opens your exposure up. So I guess it's an always on approach. And again, I'm quite happy. I'll say to the team that, I'm really sorry. Normally on a Monday morning, they'll get lots off me in a positive way in our group chat. Oh, I saw a rival I saw another TOC did this, or I saw another brand did this. That's quite interesting to how we did it. And I find sometimes, Sunday afternoon LinkedIn Learning podcasts, Twitter, X, whatever we call it now, is a great way of picking up other bits and pieces and other bits of information, and looking at how other people talk about their brands and think, do you know what? We're right there. We're on the right path here. Or do you know what? That was proposed to me by the agency and I didn't think it was right for us. Maybe next time that's the right thing to do. So I think for me, in the way I am, it's very much about self-development and going out and finding what I need to do. And it's Luke's point about being in the room and being present. It really is about, there's no point me sitting here going, oh, my next role, I'd like to be the director. Well, what are you doing to show the business that maybe you are worthy of being the next director? So yeah, for me, it's about that always on self-learning.
Yeah, and a great connection, because if you can do that analysis of market and operations, it can reassure yourself of either what you're doing really well or not, maybe doing so well. And then that gap analysis becomes very clear. And I guess when you couple that with a team dynamic that you have, they will offer you feedback. They'll tell you where they need some extra support, or where you're not delivering, and then you can fine tune that. So it sounds like you've got the great recipe working at your new position at Cross Country after many years in automotive. So my final question to you, do you see yourself as a leader in the future, or do you want to take a step away from people responsibilities? Is this you now? Is this the future for you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just to answer the first point you made, I believe if you invest a lot of time in people and it's good quality time, you will get the results. Equally, I've mentioned our advertising agency, McCann. They invest a lot of time in me, and and they listen to me sometimes go through the roller coaster of emotions that I have with them. It would be unfair of me to say that the agency doesn't always get a stroppy email from me, and they'd probably argue that wasn't the case. But it's about that two-way connection. It's about learning off other people and just listening to other people's views and perceptions. That it may not work for us today, but actually in 6 months' time, that's absolutely what we want it to be. I think I've always liked working with people, and I've never been afraid to be that mentor buddy coach thing from my early career. I think, yeah, absolutely, because I think now it would be very difficult for me to go back and just be a one-man band, as it were, maybe a consultant, maybe just sitting there with a hugely responsible role, but no interaction with the team on a daily basis. As you can testify, I love to chat, but I like to uncover things. I really like to just really not just scratch the surface. I like to go beneath to really understand what makes you work. What is it I need to know about you that is going to get you the best that you need to be, and also get you your next role. And in a year or 2 years' time, Cross Country are bored of me and they need somebody to replace me. Could you do that role? And if you are really interested in my role, what do I need to do to help you fulfill that? Yeah, I think being a leader, once you do it, and once you do it to the level that I'm at now, it's a really fulfilling thing, Matt, just to know that you can. And it sounds really pathetic, doesn't it? But when you know that you can say to the team at the end of the week, we've been through a hell of a lot this week, but I can absolutely assure you next week we're in a far better place for it. You're going to go into your weekend not stressing now because we've got that sorted. You should be excited because the project that you've always wanted is coming your way now. So I think there is nothing more. People say that it's better to give than receive. I absolutely love managing people. It has its responsibilities, of course. It has its emotional traumas as well. It's not all easy, but I think it's more rewarding than anything else I've ever done, Matt.
That's great. And I think to draw a summary to a couple of things you said that I really resonate with is you talked about that, in essence, the coaching part of your role. And you love the fact that you see people grow and you can almost take a little bit of that responsibility from them growing and excelling. And on a personal level, I love that. I love that about the role I carry. And I know others that we've spoken to on the podcast love that part of their role where they can have an impact, a direct impact on someone's life in a really positive way. And also, I think that the most important part is, you said right at the start, being thankful, regardless of the outcomes. Everybody comes to work for a reason. More often it's about the money and paying bills, as we talked about at the start. So if we can be thankful for their input and we can show them we appreciate their values and what they're doing for the company, I think that goes a long way to building that mutual respect between your colleagues and your leaders. So, David, it's been a great chat. And you've given some really great insight. And yes, you love to talk, and I'd love to do some more talking with you, but you're a busy man and you've got to go, haven't you? So
well, absolutely. And if ever you need to talk again, I'm more than happy to. But thanks for inviting me, Matt. Really enjoyable.
It's been a real pleasure. And finally, just for, again, our listeners and viewers, what's worth checking out right now? What's the latest communication from your company, the brand, that's worth having a look at? Because I've already expressed there's some great film and video out there. What else should we be looking at?
I mean, if you're out on our network, you've got to be looking at our out of home activations that are going on from next week in Cardiff, Edinburgh, and Birmingham. We've got some brilliant digital activations where we have two screens combining together to tell stories. You'll see those out and about. Sign up for our CRM is the other thing I'd say. Get on our marketing list. And please opt in to say that you did want marketing, because we can tell you some stories. We can take you to some amazing places. But go look at our Cross Country YouTube channel and look at our adverts and our campaigns over the last couple of years. And the way we're working at the moment, we're doing pop-up events all over the UK. So if you take us on your journey cross country, come along and say hello.
Yes. So you've heard there that David and his team are responsible for some amazing innovations and creative developments for cross country trains. So please check that out. And once again, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure. And for everybody listening and watching, we'll see you again on the next episode of Lead By. Thank you.